Hello and welcome to the As Yet Unnamed podcast. I am your host Ian Barstow and thank you so much for downloading this episode of the show. So today we talk to Lukas McFarlane, winner of Sky One's Got to Dance, performer on the XFactor, choreographer on the XFactor and Strictly Come Dancing. It's a really interesting conversation with Lukas. We talk about his time starting dancing, his process through Got to Dance, and also how he got involved with Strictly and other shows, and basically his life and career in general as well. Thank you so much to Lukas for agreeing to do the interview. It was a really fun talk and discussion that we had. He's currently based in Calgary, or in fact he's currently living in Calgary, Canada with his family. He moved back there just before lockdown started, and yes, COVID-19, it makes an appearance as it does in everything at the moment. And it's a really good discussion and interview, and I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed doing it. I tried not to be a complete fanboy because I have been a fan of Lukas's work for a good number of years since he was on Got to Dance. So we will get on with the show very shortly, but if you're listening to this episode, thank you for downloading, and why not subscribe to the podcast on whatever app you are listening to. And if you're watching this on YouTube, again, thank you for watching, and why not subscribe to the YouTube channel. The As Yet Unnamed podcast is out every Monday morning around about 6 a.m. on YouTube and also your podcast app. You can find us on Twitter at the As Yet Unnamed Pod, P-O-D, and you can follow me on Twitter as well at IanHRP. Right then, let's get on with the interview. This is Lukas McFarlane. I hope you enjoy it, and I will talk to you at the end of the podcast. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to this episode of the As Yet Unnamed podcast, and in today's episode I am joined by winner of Sky One's Got to Dance. He's also danced with Celine Dion. He's worked on the XFactor, Eurovision and Strictly Come Dancing, and he starred in his own theatre production this year as well. It is Mr. Lukas McFarlane. Hello and good afternoon and good morning for you because you're in Canada at the moment.
Yes, hello and good morning from Canada. Thank you for having me, Ian. I'm really excited to be here.
No problem. Thank you very much for coming on. So are you in Canada? Did you fly to Canada before all of this, or the lockdown and all of the COVID stuff happened, or did you fly there specifically to be with family during this time?
Kind of right on the cusp. So our show got shut down and I spent about a week in London, and there was all these like, ooh, the borders might close. And I knew we were going to kind of be shut down for a second here. So I thought, what a great opportunity to maybe go home and spend time with my family, because I haven't spent more than 2 weeks with them at a time in the past 8 years. So it was like, okay, well, let's take this time to kind of maybe, instead of settling down and being alone in my own apartment and getting in my own head, I was like, let's go spend some time with family. And they have a beautiful house, my parents, and in Canada, there's lots of space and parks around and stuff like that. So I did not think I would be here as long as I am. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm glad I came for sure. It was a good choice.
And what's it like in Canada at the moment? Are you still on a lockdown in Canada?
Yeah, everyone's kind of still shut in, but they are slowly opening. So like more numbers are being allowed to gather outside each day, and they're starting to send certain jobs back to work and stuff like that. So like my mom goes back to work next week. She's a hairdresser, and things like that. So they're slowly opening, but all the same, like new rules, like masks must be worn and still keeping the social distancing and all that stuff. So kind of similar, but maybe a little more open than they are in the UK, because from what I'm hearing, it's not going so well there.
No, we are. We're on phase 2 of something, of some sort of phases, whatever they're putting on, who knows. But I think theatre and cinema and mass gathering in confined spaces or even in open spaces, I think we're a long way off yet. I think that the theatre world is struggling a lot at the moment all over the world, but I think they're probably one of the last ones that are going to be back, unfortunately.
Totally.
Well, hopefully when I'm listening back to this in a year's time, it will be like, oh yeah, I remember that, and we're back to normal. I'm not quite sure.
That crazy time.
It is very strange times. So I first sort of saw you when I was watching Got to Dance on Sky One,
Oh,
which was what,
so
back
long ago.
in 2014,
13.
13.
13.
Blimey, that's a long time
Yeah,
ago.
very.
So what was that like? I've always wondered what it's like when you go on one of these reality talent competitions, because obviously the stuff we see on the TV is very edited. They build the story and they sort of build the story around the person, and then when did you first apply, and then how long did it take you to get into that? Was it the Dome? They had a dome in a car park, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, in Clapham in a park.
Big budget with Sky One.
Yeah, totally.
So how long did it take you from auditioning to actually getting onto the show, and what's that process like?
Yeah, so I some researchers came to a class I was taking, and kind of approached me after the class and said, look, you're really talented. We'd love for you to audition for this show, Got to Dance. Have you heard of it? And at that time, I actually hadn't, because it's not syndicated anywhere. So it's very like a UK show, right?
Yeah.
So, and I had just moved. I'd only been there for 8 months or something like that. So I kind of was like, okay, I said no actually at first, because I grew up working behind the scenes in talent shows. I assisted choreographers on So You Think You Could Dance and stuff like that. And I saw what they can be, and what a toll they can take on a contestant. And I kind of was like, look, I'm here to be a dancer, and not necessarily a famous like Lucas. I kind of want to work with artists and be like that. So I said no. And they approached me a couple more times. And at that point, I hadn't fulfilled any part of my dreams of being in the UK and working dancer. So I kind of just thought to myself, why not? There's nothing to lose here. Like, I know the Brits are very patriotic. So I was like, I'm probably not going to get very far. But even if I get aired, like, I can use it for a reel kind of thing for my audition. So I went to an audition in August of 2012 in like a studio in front of producers. And they said, yep, you're great. We love you. We'll call you. A couple days later, they were like, okay, we want you to do the Dome auditions. Your audition it was like the beginning of September.
Yeah.
So I made up a solo kind of last minute. And I went with a couple of my friends, and I knew the whole reality game, and I kind of had to give a bunch of information on myself, right? And then they kind of choose what story they maybe want to go with. And they ran with that kid who was missing his mom, which I was like, great, truth, I'm missing my mom for sure. That's not so much of a lie. I can run with that. And we phoned her from there and all that stuff, and I was on board for all of it. I knew what it was. And it wasn't until I did my solo that I think I was hit with like how maybe it could affect me. And it was just, I knew who Kim was, especially because obviously Pussycat Dolls were worldwide. And I had heard of Ashley at that point. I didn't know who Aston was because JLS didn't really make it across the pond. But they said such nice things to me, and I was kind of like, okay, wow, this is crazy. Like, this is so cool. I think Ashley said it was his favorite audition ever. And I was like, really, wow, this is 4 seasons of this show. And then I left, and that was it. And it was like, cool, what a great experience. I got 3 gold stars, and then we'll tell you if you get to the live shows. And that was September. And then right after that, I booked my first job, which was XFactor. And I started.
So you were working on XFactor before you did the live shows for Got to Dance?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that fall, from like September, October, November, I actually started working as a dancer. And all these dreams of mine that I moved there for came true. So I did XFactor, I danced for Taylor Swift, I did Celine Dion, I did an Adidas advert, I did the Energy Music Awards in France. Like, it took off. And I was so like content with my life, I forgot all about this show that I auditioned for back in September. And then at Christmas, I was home in Canada, and I got an email that was like, congratulations, you've made the live shows of this show you auditioned for 4 months ago. And I was kind of like, wow, what? Okay. And they're like, your semifinal is February 10th. And I was like, okay. Well, I haven't been doing any contemporary because I've been working as a commercial dancer, but I auditioned as a contemporary dancer. So I was like, okay, holy crap, I got to get back training. And that kind of kicked in a new gear because I was like, okay, well, I'm on the live show. I'll try it. I still didn't really know how big it was. But I was like, I'm going to go in because everything I do full on. So I started taking ballet again and training and stuff like that. I started to create these solos. And then they aired my audition at the beginning of January. And I was in Russia teaching, actually. It was my first international teaching job. And I was in Russia and I was teaching, and they aired my audition. And I woke up the next morning and my social media was crazy. And hashtag one sock was trending on Twitter. And my friend texted me, I'll never forget, Meg texted me and she went, dude, hashtag one sock is trending on Twitter. And I was like, what is this thing I'm in? This is crazy. Like, I don't even understand it. And that started to like pile on this stuff. But it wasn't until February that I did my first live show, and I auditioned in August. So you can imagine, like, I wasn't even in that mind frame by Christmas, but then I had to like jump back in it and be in this space of this thing that I didn't really even understand what the entity was at that point. And then the live show was like, oh my gosh, I'm on this really giant thing. And
because it's in Wembley. It was at Wembley, wasn't it? The live. Was it the live? Was it just the final?
Just in the studio, and then the live final was at Kensington Olympia. So 6,000, 7,000 people.
Well, I followed. The first time I saw you on Got to Dance, I was like, I don't dance. I'm not a dancer. I've got two left feet.
Everybody dances.
Well, yeah, but I'm one of those. If I'm out or somewhere, I'll stand at the bar. I don't tend to get up and dance unless I am very drunk. But I remember I do like watching dance. I really enjoy it. And I remember when you came on, and it was like, he's gonna be really good. He's gonna get far in this, because it's one of those ones that stood out. And I think Kimberly Walsh's reaction when on your first edition was like, she was just, you're what we've been waiting for. So then you got through, and I was watching some of the videos on YouTube today of that final, and I forgot how mad and wild the crowd were when you were doing your final. In the final, when you were doing your dance, it was just it exploded. The whole room just went crazy. And I thought I thought at the time, it was like, right, he's going to win that, and you did, obviously. But what was that feeling like when you did that? Because it was James Arthur's song, I think you did it too, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I did Impossible for my semi, and I wasn't actually going to do it for my semifinal. And I wasn't going to do it at all, actually. It was a song that I put forward, and the producers told me I couldn't do it because he had just won, and they didn't want to be associated with XFactor. And I know how these things work, and I wasn't green to it. So I fought really hard, and they said, it's not happening. Pick another song. Here's all the other songs you can do. So I went in the studio, and I made a solo to it anyways. And I sent it to them. And then the executive producer, Nick Steinberg, called me the day that I sent it. And it's the first time I talked to him, and he runs the show. And he said, hi, it's Nick, the executive producer of Let's Dance. I was like, nice to meet you, Nick. And he was like, so, we've seen your solo. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and we want you to do it. I was like, okay, great. And he was like, well, we want you to do it for the semifinal, because I was going to say it for the final. He said, we want you to do it for the semifinal, because in the final we repeat, if you make top 3, you repeat your semi, and we think it's your best chance of winning. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. I'll trust them, kind of thing. And I'm so happy I did, because that solo became like what I'm known for, was known for anyways at the time. And the semifinal alone was crazy. Like, the crowd reaction was crazy. The judges couldn't talk. They kept chanting my name. Like, and that's when it really hit me what I was on. But the final, I couldn't even hear what they were saying. Like, there was 6,000 people, like, deafening roaring in my ears. Like, I've never, and will probably never, experience anything like that again, because dancers don't get that to be at the front, and dancers don't get to be like the the person that everyone is watching, we're usually behind the artist, right? So to be a soloist doing what I do and having a stadium of people like roaring my name and chanting my name, and and I'm 19, like I was so young and so green, and just like a lot of it actually is quite not there because I wasn't very present. Like
Yeah.
a lot of my memory of it is now third person, like watching it back, because I think I was in so much shock about what was happening, and the lead up to it from the semifinal, because I had 7 weeks in between my semi and my final, so I watched every week
Was it that
as more and
long?
more people.
Yes, because it was every week. Because the next series, I think it was all over 1 week, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But this was, so it
yeah.
was 7 weeks between semi-final to final. Did you,
So
when
I
you were
had to
watching the others, did
watch.
you go, "Oh, that one's going to be trouble. That one's going to be"?
Imagine what it did to my head, like, and I'm creating for the final, and then I'd watch the next week and see who got through, and then scrap that whole thing and then also the pressure of it, because every week they were comparing people to me, and they were saying, when we have people like Lucas, and we have Lucas, and I just kept thinking, how the hell am I going to outdo myself after I've created this thing that is like becoming so iconic, and I'm in papers and I'm on the bookies to win. People are betting on me to freaking win this thing. And like, I have like paparazzi following me, and I was like, how am I going to outdo this? Like it caused a lot of like mental up and down for
Yeah.
me. It was a really hard 7 weeks, like watching every weekend and knowing what was coming and all these people I was going to be against. And so, obviously it turned out the
It turned
way
out
that
you
it
won,
did.
and I think you won
Yeah.
convincingly. What was because obviously it was presented by Davina McCall,
Yes.
and I talked to Davina McCall once. This is one of my few name drops that I can put out there.
Okay.
I won a competition to go to the launch show of Big Brother about 10 years ago, and she was stood in front of
Amazing.
me, and we had a quick chat with her, and just that little bit, she came across really nice, a really
She
lovely
is.
person. And I always, the presenter's quite important, because they're the first person you see, the first person that you talk to
Totally.
after you've done the performance. Are they almost there to sort of hold your hand and go, right, everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, and I was like shaken, and I was like freaking out, and I didn't even really like, and I was trying to focus on obviously what the judges are saying, but there's so much going on. And then I looked to my right, and she's crying, and I was like, no, you have to keep it together because you can't cry because I'm a mess. Like, you're supposed to be strong for me right now. But she was so sweet. Like, she would come to our dressing rooms and wish us good luck, and like she bought us a little presents, and she was really, really sweet, really kind human.
But let's go back to sort of your young life. So you're living in Calgary, Canada?
Yes,
Yeah.
Calgary, Canada.
Um, and when did you first start to dance? When did you first sort of get into dance, and the first dance studio and dance lessons you went to? How old were you for that?
So I started when I was 6 years old. I went to a Shania Twain concert because we are from Cowtown and we love country music here. So I went to Shania Twain, and she had tap dancers, and I looked at my mom and asked for tap shoes, apparently. So she put me in tap, and tap was my first love. Um, it's something I love still. It's like the first style that I really excelled at, as well as on the Canadian tap team when I was like 12, and I love it. And then the rest of the styles kind of fell in. And then from 6 to 18 years old, I just trained at my local studio, and I trained a lot, and all weekend and every day after school, I was there like 4 till 10. And yeah, that was my whole kind of upbringing and training and dance. And I traveled to America and stuff like that for conventions and different competitions. My parents always, because I was the only boy at my studio, or one of like two, and then in the city, like maybe one of five. So I won a lot. So my parents always traveled me out to places where I was competing against like 40 boys, so that I lost, because they really wanted me to know that I wasn't the best, which was amazing
Yeah.
because it made me come back and be like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to win next year. I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. So I traveled a bit training that way, but most of my training was at a place called Dance Scott Studio. And that was like my home for dance until I was 18.
And so you started off with tap. I find tap fascinating. It's
It's amazing.
it's and I you sort of think, oh yeah, I could do that. You know, I can move my feet a little bit, and then you think there's no chance I could jump up in there and tap my feet and twirl away at the same time. It's no, not a chance. And a lot of people obviously see tap dance. You've got the Gene Kellys and the old school tap, but now the modern tap as well is brought in. And then obviously you've got river dance, which a lot of people think is tap dance, and it's like, no, that's Irish dancing with tap
totally
shoes.
Yeah.
So from tap dancing, how did you get, because you're known for contemporary and you obviously do commercial dance as well, and I find commercial probably one of the most moving. When it came on Strictly, I was so happy when they gave the contestants the choice to do couple's choice, so they could do the dance, they could do musical, they could do all the different styles. And I always think contemporary, if it's done right, it's beautiful, and it's one of those few where you can watch it and you'll be moved and you'll think, well, why am I moved by it? I don't understand why I'm moved by it, but I am.
Totally.
So where did your love of contemporary dance start? Did you go from tap to something else, or was it just like you try everything and then that's the one I want?
So I took tap my first year, and then I kind of took the three styles that you do to try: tap, jazz, and ballet. And that's kind of what you train in. And then I kind of did more musical theater. We did a lot of musical theater in my studio. And then I also was a gymnast and balanced the two until I was like 12. So I did a lot of acro. And then when I was like 12 or 13, contemporary like wasn't a thing until I was like 12 or 13, right? It was lyrical. And it was like very beautiful mix of ballet and jazz. That was very, I think what contemporary has now that lyrical doesn't is that contemporary is very pedestrian and can be very human in its movement, whereas lyrical was very kind of a trained dance style as well. So we had a teacher join our studio named Katie Smith, and she introduced me to contemporary. And I will never forget the first contemporary classes I took. And I was like, this is what I want to do, because I loved, and still to this day is why I love it so much, the storytelling part of contemporary and the acting part of contemporary, and that there was this human emotional quality to it, and there was a reason why we were dancing. There was always a story, and that's my favorite part of contemporary. It's why it's my favorite style today, is because I feel like you said, I can say something with it that moves people. And I think why it moves people so much is because it gets dialogue out of the way.
Yeah.
And it's telling a story with just the emotions. Like that's what dance is. It's this language without words, and it's just emotions. So when you're watching something, you feel it. And like you said, you don't really know why, but you're being impacted by this movement because it's the story without the words. And I think that's what drew me so much to it. And it became such a part of the way I get through life as well. Like, and so therapeutic for me. Like I create what is going on in my life to deal with it, to express it in a way that I can't maybe with words. So once it fell into my life, I was like married to it. I was like, this style is so me. It feels like this expressive other language that I've been missing in my life, you know.
When you watch you dance and other dancers dance, you make it look so effortless, but you're throwing yourself around the stage. You're so jumping high, you're spinning, you're landing sometimes on the floor, and I'm thinking if I did that, I'd break a bone.
Well, I have.
Yes, yeah. We'll come on. I know you've had quite a few injuries, but how do you train your body to? Is it literally repetitiveness of it, and just practice, or is there certain sort of things that you can do? So certain exercises that you have to do to keep yourself in shape to do the type of dance you're doing.
Right. Well, I think it's an ongoing thing. Like, and you need to look after the parts of your bodies that aren't doing so well as well. And it's always something new every day. I always say, and to all my kids, and like how important ballet is, because it's one of those styles that has a yes or a no. And there's not very many styles that have a yes or a no, like this is right, this is wrong. Dance is so subjective, right? And ballet is right or wrong. And it's right or wrong because it trains you to use your body in the correct way. It builds the muscles that you need to protect your joints, your ligaments, your body in the correct way. And then I always say that you have to cross train as a dancer as well, because as dancers, we don't train. We train specific things to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we don't train maybe the rest to protect around that. And I didn't learn that until my third surgery, maybe. But like I now, like my warm up is an hour long for every class that I teach, because I do push-ups, sit-ups, ballet, like squats, like so much strength training, because I've learned through injury how important this cross training is, whether that be yoga, whether that be Pilates, whether that be just going to the gym. Like cross training for dancers is so important, because like you said, it is so physical. And I know it looks easy, but it is. I just saw a thing the other day. It's like voted one of the hardest physical jobs in the world is a dancer, because of what it takes, like athleticism wise, agility wise, flexibility wise. Like it's such a difficult art form.
Well, so if you're doing a stage show, you're doing 7-8 shows a week, and it's so you've got all of the training before you get to the show, before all of the rehearsals. You're probably doing rehearsals during the run of the show, so you're tightening up bits here and there. Then you're doing 7 full shows. You must come home at the end of a week or a day and just collapse in exhaustion after doing that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, because I just did this for the first time, what you're explaining, and it's crazy. Like I was thinking, how am I going to do this? But it was such a challenge for me. I was like, I'm going to do it. But the stamina that you build up to do it, and also something repetitive, so something that you do every night, that you know where you have the most energy, where you can relax, where like your body's doing the same movement, because it's a show, right? And so it's amazing how your body adapts to the situation. But I still, before every show, went down on the stage and did my hour warm up before we even did a group warm up, because I knew I needed that for my body to stay in shape and to be prepared for what I was going to ask it to do. But those days off, that like one dark day was very welcomed at the end of the week. It was like, Monday, yes, sleeping all day and not doing a show at night. So nice.
So you go through sort of your teenage years doing your dance classes and your dance competitions, and then you moved to London on your own. So you didn't sort of move over with family or friends or anything like that. So what made you do it, and what was your parents? Did you have your parents' blessing? Did they sort of fear for you going over to this strange country halfway around the world?
Yeah, well, they're happy now. But maybe not so much that it happened, but I was 18. Like I said, I've been working on Sleeping Dance for a choreographer named Sean Cheeseman. And he had worked a lot in the UK. He did Daddy Cool, the musical. He was the main judge on Dirty Dancing Time of Your Life. You had a series in the UK called that for a while. So he had worked a lot in the UK. And I was getting to that point where I was graduating, and he was like, what do you want to do, kind of thing. And he suggested that I should go to London. And not many people went to London. Everybody from Canada kind of moves to LA. And he was like, in LA, like you're gonna have to do things under the table and all that stuff. Like we're Commonwealth, so the first visa in the UK is really easy. The first. After that, they wanted me out so bad. But the first one was really easy. And I could build up a resume and then move to LA and actually have some stuff on my CV. So at the time, I had actually applied to all these schools, and I was going to go to school. I got accepted into Alvin Ailey in New York and NYU. Tisch School of the Arts, and kind of 2 weeks before I was going to move to New York, I just like woke up and just thought, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to be a ballet modern dancer. Like I want to dance for artists. I want to be a commercial dancer. And so I told my parents, like, I don't want to do this. I want to move to London instead. And this is after a year of like flying me for auditions for the schools. And my dad stayed up all night, like filling out, scholarship forms and stuff like that, like trying to get us money so that I could go, because these schools are so expensive. Like they were going to remortgage their house, and like, and then I was like, so I'm gonna I would rather move to London. I know I've never been, and I don't know anybody there, but I'm going to be a professional dancer. So you can imagine they were like, what? But I somehow convinced them. And so, yeah, I picked up my bags when I was 18 out of high school and just moved. And I knew my dance teacher's nanny when she was a kid. I was put in touch with her, and they lived out in like Letchworth, like outside of London. And I went and stayed with her family for a couple weeks when I was moved there to get my feet on the ground. And then I just started, like, I found a place. I went to Pineapple because that was the famous studio.
Louis Spence.
Louis Spence, yeah, we know about Louis Spence. And I just kind of like started going to classes, and I took horrible classes because I didn't know anything, and I took great classes, but then you just meet people, and I tried to be as outgoing as possible, and that's just kind of how my journey started. Was very a fish like out of water, like I just knew nothing and had never been. But I don't know. You know what though? The minute I landed in London, like I really felt like that's where I needed to be. I never felt like, what am I doing? Ever. I always felt like this is right. This is right. This is right. This is right.
Who gave you your first yes? What was your first sort of proper?
You're
getting the job.
First job was nothing to be super proud of. I'm not gonna lie to you, but everyone has to have a beginning story. I did this. I applied for everything online, and I ended up getting this one that was a contemporary company that I had this show, and it was kind of an outdoor show, they were saying, and it was based around trolleys. Okay, now in my head, a trolley is a San Francisco trolley, like the big trolley cars, because I don't know the translation yet, right? So then I get to rehearsal, and we're all pushing shopping
trolleys,
right? Yep. And I was like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But we did this show. It was like a 20-minute outdoor piece. We did like festivals, and there were 6 of us pushing shopping trolleys. It was like the relationships of these shopping trolleys. It was very abstract and not really my thing. And at that point, there was quite a few big auditions coming in that I ended up having to miss out on because I had taken this job. But I had always like been taught, like, and I still run my career on it today, like once you commit to something, you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that loyalty and that commitment goes a lot further. For people talk a lot, you know, and you build up a reputation, and once I commit to something, I do it regardless of what comes in the way. So I missed out on like Les Mis, the movie was filming then, and like lots of stuff like that, but I did 3 months of this shopping trolley show around the UK. Which was cool. Like I saw the UK, which I hadn't, and that was fun. But then after that, it wasn't until I auditioned for XFactor, and that was after I got to dance, after the initial audition for dance. It was like a week later that I auditioned for X, and Brian Friedman gave me my first yes. And I think it's because he wasn't from here. He wasn't part of, like, as much as he had worked here, he wasn't part of this. Everyone wants to hire their friends because they don't want to work with someone new that they don't know. And I get that now as a choreographer. But it's really hard to break into an industry, you know, that everyone just wants to use the same dancers. So he used to have a giant open call every year for X Factor, and everyone from Europe would come to this Brian Friedman. So it was like thousands of dancers. And I knew that was coming for 3 months. And I was like in the gym because I had just done the Britain's Got Talent audition, and Simon Cowell told me, you're the best dancer here. It's a shame you're too fat. So I was, that was a really nice moment as well.
That was when he's not so bad now. He's not quite so evil anymore.
He was so nice. I love to hear it now. So I was going to the gym, and I was like not eating, and I was like, I'm booking X Factor. And there was 900 guys, and I was one of, like, I think they ended up with like 30 or 25 from the pack, like at the end of the day. It was the hardest fucking audition of my life. It was so intense. But it was the first, like, I've made it. I did it. I got to work for someone who would later become, like, not only one of my great friends, but also, like, one of the biggest mentors in my life. So it was a huge, amazing opportunity for me to book that.
I always think X Factor days must be, in fact, any TV days, I always think they must be extremely long. Because I bet you probably get a call to be there for 8 o'clock in the morning, and you don't leave until 11, 12 o'clock at night, I would think.
Yeah, when it's done, right?
And you're
They're
there,
long days.
and it's all for a couple of, well, probably are they 3-minute performances, I think?
Oh, no, less. They're like 2 minutes.
Is it 2?
Maybe. Yeah.
If you're really bad, it's 1 minute, and we'll just pad it out a bit.
Right. But on the beginning of the shows, it's like 12 2.5-minute routines, right? And they're all different, and they're all different choreography. They're all different outfits, and you learn them in a day, 2 days.
Blimey.
Like, I've never experienced that intense of like, and then they all change. You learn them all in every single day, because what happens with X is they write the creatives on Monday. They get everything started and made. The dancers come in on Tuesday. They work with the contestants on Wednesday. And then they have the meeting with Simon on Thursday where they pitch the creatives to him after everything's been set, because he won't see anyone until then. So then he says, no. And on Friday, the first day in the studio, everything's a new routine.
And then on the Saturday night show, we'll go, I didn't like that choreography, and they were too distracting. And you approved it.
Mate, and it's always changing up to the last minute. Like, I'm telling you, we do 8 versions of every routine, and now you're on the left, and now you're on the right. Now we're splitting this, and now you're actually cut from it. Okay, now you're back in, but it's a duet, and then the whole number is scrapped, but we're doing it. Like, there was a year that 2 hours before the live show, they changed the song, but they wanted the dancers still, a whole new routine, and they didn't have any costumes, a whole new look, and we learned a whole routine backstage on they called it area, what's the area 59 or whatever it's called. And we learned the whole routine there, like 2 hours before the show, handed garbage bags, like bin bags, make your own costumes out of these bin bags. I'm no word of a lie. And then on stage for the routine, like, it is the craziest show I've ever been a part of. It's insane.
So obviously then, so you work, so you do the XFactor, and then you start to do your, was Strictly a couple of years after that, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah,
so lots after it, because then I did X, I did all those things I said, Celine, I did a bunch of amazing opportunities, Taylor Swift, it was crazy. And then Got to Dance came around, obviously, like, propelled me in a totally different direction. I won this show, and I was like, the thing about the show is, like, it sets you up, and it's the most incredible opportunity, and then it's over. And the next day, it's literally like, okay, you do a bunch of press the next day, and then after that, it's like, have a good life. and I was not ready to use that platform in any way, shape, or form, because I had any expectation of winning. So I wasn't where apparently the rest of the world was in thinking that I was going to win this thing. And so I didn't have anything in place to use this platform. And it kind of became this like scramble to maintain this image and this profile that had been created for me, right? Because that 5 seconds of fame disappears like this. I did a lot of performing, impossible. I've never performed that solo ever again in my life. I've never done anything so much in my life. And that was fun. That was great. But I did a lot of performances just at like big events and stuff like that. And then I was kind of always scrambling to get back on TV and maintain his profile. And then 3 or 4 months after that, I won. I blew my knee for the 3rd time. And so my whole world like collapsed again.
Was that in a
so high?
Were you in a? I saw a video. I was just doing a bit of research earlier on this week, and I saw a video. Were you in the dance studio?
Yeah, and the recovery video.
Yeah, that's the one I was. Yeah. And so, it literally, you weren't doing anything specific out of the ordinary. Your knee just went. Yeah,
and it wasn't something strange to me because I'd had it repaired. Well, I'd had 2 surgeries at that point. So my first one was on my right knee when I was 14, my meniscus tore, and I had it done. And then my left knee went when I was 16. So I'd had 2 repairs at that point. And then my left knee tore again. And that's what happens when your meniscus tears, is it displaces between your femur and your tibia, and your knee locks. And so it can't straighten. And so that was the end of that. And I knew I needed it repaired or taken out. And actually my first visa was ending kind of when it tore as well. So I ended up going home to Canada, very, very high and then very low. And then I was in Canada for 3 or 4 months, like recovering, trying to get another visa. And like my whole world I became nobody again.
So what's the
And I
surgery
was
for the?
like,
What do they do for the knee? Is it, do they replace the disc, or is it just literally build it back up?
so it's this like piece of cartilage. It's between your two bones. It stops them from hitting,
Yeah.
and it's basically a cushion. It has no blood through it. It's really hard to repair, but usually they repair it in younger people. So that's why they repaired it the first couple times. This time he was supposed to take it out, my surgeon, that third time. But it's a really weird, like, kind of godly story that when I was laying on the table, the nurse took down her thing and was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know me, but I like used to dance at your studio. You were really young, and I've just seen obviously you won this show because it was all over the news in my city." And she was like, "Congratulations, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Okay, weird." It's like going out there, and then apparently she was showing the nurses the video of me from Got to Dance, and he had already decided that he was going to take it out. It's from the MRI. He was like, "There's nothing to save." But I would have arthritis in 10 years ish, right? Like it's quite a big thing to take out in such a young person, especially with what I do.
Yeah.
And he saw this video over her shoulder, and it was his sixth surgery of the day, and he didn't have to. It was supposed to be a 20-minute surgery taking it out. And he said to my mom later, he said, and I thought, what would I do if this was my kid? Because I think I told him I was a dancer, but he must hear, oh yeah, you're a dancer, right?
Yeah.
And then he saw the physicality of what I do, especially on that show. My solos were so intense. And he ended up fixing it and repairing it. He took all the pieces out, put it together, put it back in, which was like a 2-hour surgery in the end. Which I was like, no, because in my head I was like, I'm gonna be walking in 2 days. But then I had this like 3-4 month recovery. But it also gave me almost 6 more years on that knee, like until it went again, which is unheard of. Like once it tears once, there's an 80% chance it's going to tear within the next year again. And I had it repaired twice, which you don't do with a meniscus, but he just really put in the time. And then I, obviously the third time, put in the time to repair it because.
When did you come out to your family and friends? And was that a difficult? Was it a difficult process? Was it an accepted? And did it take you along? Because so it took me a while. So I was 32 when I came out. So how old were you when you came out, and when did you realise that you were a gay man?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you can probably attest, like there's something in the back of your head you always kind of know. And it's whether you kind of admit that to yourself or it becomes something that you excuse. Um, it was until I moved to London that I came out, because I think in my environment I couldn't because I had pretended to be someone else for so long,
Yeah.
as you do, and so it helped to move away and have a new kind of environment, and that's where I had my first relationship with a guy, and with him I kind of came out because it's easier to say I'm in love than it is to say I'm gay. So that was easier to say this is my partner, this is the person I love kind of situation. It was a very quick love and intense, and it was like a couple months, and I thought he was my life, and he wasn't. Obviously, I was 18. But that at least let me come out and be who I wanted to be. Especially in the environment that I was in there, and all my friend groups, it was just nice to just like for the first time be who I was, right? And have people not have a problem with it, especially the dance world. It's obviously very common. And I was out and to everybody, and I had no issue with it. And then Got to Dance came along, and it was an interesting kind of like wrench in that because I knew the game and I knew the show. It was a TV show, and I wanted to do well. And so I didn't deny it in any
Yeah.
way, but I didn't openly talk about my sexuality, which is actually something I really regret now. And I've done things now to like go against that. But on the show, I was very like, I would lower my voice in interviews, and I was like very actively aware of playing both sides of that spectrum so that people didn't know. So you could get the female vote, which is a huge vote on a dance show, right? And like I said, I regret that now, and I don't want to say I'm ashamed of it because it's allowed me to have the platform to talk about it now in a way that maybe I wouldn't have if I did win. So but after that, I met my first long-term relationship, and we were together for 4 years. And he kind of being with him was the first time that I was like, okay, I want to actively talk about this and be okay with it. And I have this giant platform now. Like I want some little boy or little girl to look at me and see that I have the life I do and I'm living my truth, and that it's okay for them too as well. So then I think it was National Coming Out Day that I posted a picture of us kissing, like under the Eiffel Tower or whatever, stupid romantic. And I was just like, this is a big thing for me to do, but I want to, again, make it okay for anybody to feel like they can. And it's just so funny now, like all my kids, and I run this seed program, my like young person program, all stuff. And they're like 12, 13, 14 and just gay and openly. And I just can't even fathom.
It's amazing,
that.
isn't it?
Like,
It's amazing.
Oh, I'm so happy for them that they live in a world and an environment in which, and with parents and a support system that they can just do that now at such a young age, because but I think the limitations of society and people always telling you, toughen up, be a man, all those things, like those small things, they really implement in a child's brain. And I just love looking at the culture now of these young dancers that all are so supportive and love each other. And maybe it's because they have mentors that are so openly themselves now, like me. And so that's why I'm grateful for my platform to like say, this is my boyfriend in front of all my kids, and not be ashamed of that, and not that have to be a bad thing. Right. But my family's been so supportive. They always were. I was very lucky to have very supportive parents, and like any parents, it was a bit of a journey, but they love me and loved me through it. And
are you back on Strictly this year, or are you hoping to be back on Strictly this year for the contemporary side of it?
yeah, I mean, you never know, but I was really like lucky to be the person that they trusted to bring contemporary on the show, and that was such an honor. Like when I got that call, and met with them. And I'm such a fan of, I don't know if you know who Jason Gilkinson is, but
yes.
He's the creative director of the show.
Yeah.
And he's like an incredible creative, and I'm such a fan. And so when I met with him and the producers, and he was a fan of mine, I was like a little kid again, and I was like freaking out. And they sat with me and they pitched me this, and they wanted to know what I would do with it. And I had to kind of run with it on the spot. And I know they met with a couple people, but also AJ was who they were going to put that on the first time, who's now left Strictly.
I know. I was upset about that one.
But he also was randomly a fan of mine as well. And he was like, when I met him the first time, he was like, I don't know anyone from any show, but I always remember you from Gus Dance. Like, I'm such a fan. So he kind of pushed for me as well. But to be on a show that's been around for 15, 16 seasons, and to introduce a new style to it, and them to trust me with that because it was such a big deal. And it was the first couple's choice as well. They hadn't done any other like theater or street. And so that was really amazing. And it went off really well. And obviously it was difficult with Lauren because she's a runner, not a dancer. Yeah. But then the other gift on the side of that season was that I eventually got to work with Ashley as well. Ashley and Pasha. Like that was such a gift because she's like trained, and she has been trained, not in any ballroom, but in contemporary. She used to be a contemporary dancer. And not that the contemporary was anything like she used to be. Like I said, it used to be lyrical.
Yeah.
But she and Pasha, like they equally struggled, equal amounts with it. Like it was just as hard for Pasha, but to be able to represent myself as a choreographer on those two, like I didn't hold back. Like that's what I would have choreographed on So You Think You Can Dance on professional dancers, right? And so to have my work to that caliber, like it was just, I'm so grateful for her and for the show. And the show trusted me entirely. Like I did the creatives for it, the costume, the song choice, the editing, like they gave me, and I've never worked in an environment as a choreographer where I've been so trusted to handle something. Like we work for people, right? And we fit briefs. And they said, what is your brief? And that was like mind blowing for me. And they take such good care of you. The show's so positive. Like it's been one of my favorite experiences. And I've brought contemporary every year to it, like last year as well with Karim and stuff. That was so fun. So you just hope next year again they keep liking my stuff. And I think I've proven myself time and time again, which is good. But yeah, it's such a fun show to work on as a creative and a choreographer. I love it.
when the dance was over, I said to my partner, I said, I think Lukas McFarlane's done that.
Really?
Yeah, and I can't put my finger on it, and because I hadn't watched much about it, I knew it was coming up, and then I think they sort of said thank you, Lukas, when they were up and speaking to Claudia.
Yeah,
but before that, I thought it struck me just as something you would do. It just felt like your type of
I love that.
Your type of movement and style of dance that was on it, and I didn't know you'd done it, and then it was like, yeah, that was a Lukas McFarlane dance.
You know, a lot of people said that as well, which shocks me. It makes me really happy and humbled because I love that I have that my signature when I'm dancing, because I think the thing that everyone tells me when I dance is like, you made me cry, which I had to stop like taking as like, oh, and like know that it was meant as a compliment, because it's a kind of a weird thing to be told a lot. Like after you perform, it's like, you made me cry, and I know they mean it like a beautiful thing, but it's like, I'm sorry, or like, you're welcome. I don't know, but the emotion in my dance is not my like tricks and jumps and stuff. Like everyone always says, like, I just feel what you're feeling when you dance. Like that's why I think I am where I am, and to have that also come across in my work, and some people recognize that in my creations as well, be like, I think Lukas did that. This feels like Lukas. Like that's so cool that I have that stamp as well as a choreographer, which is always the aim and the goal. So I'm really humbled by that, and thanks for noticing that. That's so cool.
I'm trying. I will be honest. I'm trying slightly hard not to fanboy at the minute, because I have appreciated your work for a long time since got to dance. It's like,
thank you.
Anyway, I'll try not to.
No, thank you. I love doing stuff like this, and I think I'm always surprised at how many people also listen to my podcast and like say they got something from it. And I did do Eurovision. That was crazy.
Which obviously we haven't had this year because of Corona. It was meant to be this weekend. Yes. But what was the country you did Eurovision for?
Well, I did as a dancer for Azerbaijan, and then I choreographed for Star Alto for Finland.
And what's that experience like? Because Eurovision is massive. It's massive all over the world, particularly in this country. It's massive for the gay community. It's like the event. That and Halloween seem to be the two events that everyone just goes mad for.
Halloween.
But obviously, what was it like being asked to do Eurovision and then being part of that whole mad circus that's probably for a couple of weeks?
Eurovision is crazy, and in the best way. And when I did it the first time, I didn't know anything about it, and I got the call for it. I had taught for this choreographer in Sweden, and she was doing Azerbaijan, and me and my best friend in the whole world, Julia Spicer, who I did World of Dance with. She's like this amazing French dancer, and she's my soulmate. She called me and said, oh, do you want to do Eurovision? I'm doing Azerbaijan. I'm doing it. I'd love for you and Julia to just do a duet for this guy. And so Julia called me and was like, did you get this call? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I have some things in May. It's a lot of dates to like block out. And she was like, Lukas, cancel everything. She was like, I'm telling you, there's nothing like Eurovision. You have to say yes. She was like, this is an experience. And I was like, okay, you know what? I trust you. And also like, it's an opportunity to just dance with you, which we never get because we live in different countries. So I was like, yes. And we would both fly to Sweden to rehearse for like a day. And multiple times we did that. And we created this duet with Amber Suchi. And then we flew to, we never went to Azerbaijan, which was hilarious. But then we flew to, it was in Vienna the year I did it. And we went to Vienna, and it is such a crazy thing. And you have to like go to the parties, right? Like as the countries, because they like support each other, right? So like tonight on your itinerary, you have to go to like Ireland's party, then we're stopping in Norway's party, and like you have to do those things. So it's like you're partying all night and then you're dancing all day. So it's intense, but they look after you so well. And because there was only 3 of us on stage, it was like about us equally. And Elner, the singer, he was so generous and so grateful to us. And we became really close, the 3 of us. And so we had equal amount of like all this press as well. So it was a lot all the time, and I had to dye my hair blonde for it. So I was blonde for a while. So all the gays were all about it all the time.
It was like attention central, but it was so fun, and I don't regret it, and I loved the job. And the second time I did it as a choreographer, and I choreographed for Saralto, who I'd worked with on XFactor, for Brian. And Brian did the creative, and he brought me on as the choreographer, and it was a very different experience, and it was still great. And I love Sarah. She's like one of the most incredible artists, and she's fearless. She said she started upside down and she rotated on a thing. Like she sings and dances, and she's phenomenal. So working with her is like a gift because she's a real artist. But I didn't get to stay for the whole event, and I wasn't really like.
I always think it must feel like it's almost a month-long Pride.
Massively. It's like, and the whole city is like that, right? Like everywhere, and everywhere has a different Eurovision event, and it's really fun. It's a good time.
And I love the fact that they go to places like Azerbaijan, which aren't really known for their tolerance of gay people, and they just have thousands of gay people coming up into their cities. And
it's this like safety thing, right? It's like, okay, if we're all going to go together, right? It's like, well, then we can all feel like we belong. And I think that's like the environment of that creates such a togetherness and a belonging atmosphere for everybody, right?
So you're doing your classes, you're doing online classes at the minute during lockdown. You have your classes that you run when we're all back open and normal. And you've got your own dance school as well, haven't you?
I have a dance program. So I have a company called Untitled, and 4 years ago, I also started this young person's program called Seeds, because my logo is a tree. And so they're like the seeds of Untitled. And I did it kind of in the beginning also because I just came off tour of my own show, which I fully self-produced, so had no money off of. And I was like, oh, this will be great training program. I want to have my own kids here because I grew up teaching in Calgary, and I had like my kids, but they had all kind of graduated, and I wanted to have a next generation that I could kind of rely on as I became a choreographer and stuff like that. And what became this like, oh, I'll kind of start this small thing became like the most fulfilling thing I had ever created. And that first season, I maybe had like 35 people apply, and I only took 25. And we did this like 8-week program, and then I did a second season. It was like an 8-week program, and then I changed it to 1 week intensive in the summer. And by the 5th season, everyone applied for. I had like hundreds, and it's very international now. I have like over 16 countries applying for it, which is mad. And I take 25 kids from around the world. They're not kids anymore. I don't have an age limit anymore, so it's anybody. And we train 10 to 10 for 7 days, 8 days now, and we create a show. And it's like a professional show at the end, and kind of it gives the seeds like an opportunity to work in a professional environment, and I really treat them like professionals. So we come in every morning, we train, we do like a full warm up, we do technical training, stuff like that, and then I bring in other choreographers, and we do like a fake audition, and then they each have to create a solo, and then they have different rehearsals in the evenings if they're part of the pieces. They do an opening number, a closing number, they do self-choreographed pieces. They have to, like, their seminars. It's like the most full-on week. But it just is, it puts me in awe every year how resilient they are, how hungry the next generation is, like, and how much they want to be there, and how like open-eyed, ready for everything they are. And even by day 5, when they're like broken and having breakdowns every hour, like someone else is crying in a corner because it's too much, like, and I shouldn't laugh, but it brings me so much joy because I'm like, I'm breaking all of you. But to build them back up, and then to watch them all, like, they also bond and they carry each other through it. And I've created this family. I have a family of now 80 seeds from around the world, and they all know each other, and they all care about each other, and it's really a bonding experience that they'll never forget. So I'm so grateful to them, first of all, because I wouldn't do it without them, but also to like that whole week, every year I look forward to it. And now I don't know if I'll be able to do it because of freaking COVID. But I'm like postponing when I'm canceling it so much because I'm like, oh, surely we can open up a little bit. I just need 30 people in the studio, but
very socially distanced.
I know. And how do you dance socially distanced? Like what you said, our industry is going to be the last to go back, which is so sad because what we do is so intimate and so tactile. It's like, how do I? And I obviously there's like a concept with that. That's like nobody touching the whole piece, but like that's gonna get old real quick.
Yeah,
you know, it's like I love partnering and I love dancing with someone, and so that's gonna be really hard to come back from this. I think for our industry, and like you said about theaters, they're gonna be the last to go back because how do you do a show where you have to social distance the audience, right? Like,
well, you can't have 20 people in a theatre because for one, the theatres won't be able to afford to do it.
They won't
You'll lose the whole atmosphere. The whole atmosphere of the theatre is everybody is there sharing the same experience as you.
Totally. And that energy is palpable when you're all there together, right? And so how do they go back until social distancing is done? And when is that going to be?
Where do you think dance is more popular now than it was when you were on Got to Dance? Because it just seems to be, because obviously in the UK we had Diversity, who were massive and are just phenomenal at what they do, and that was the street dance side of it. And now contemporary seems to have really blown up, but dance in general, it always amazes me how many younger people dance. But it also seems to bring communities together. So a lot of, if you're in a deprived area or economically deprived area, it seems to bring people together, and it stops a lot of young people going into doing gangs or crime or whatever, something else. It seems to really unite groups that are sticking together.
Yeah, I think it unites groups. I think it keeps people, like you said, young people who are in worse situations, like in a better place, actively doing something that's beneficial. I have seen time and time again, and I created a whole piece on it actually on the studio in the South, on how much it helps mental health and how many conversations it can open. Because like I said, it does this thing where it gets rid of the words and it kind of allows you to explore situations that maybe are too hard to talk about. And I just think the benefits of dance are just like uncountable. And I think it is big, and I'm so grateful to live in a time when it's so big because I don't think it always was. I think I don't know if I love where it's going, because sometimes I feel like when it's so on show, with like The Greatest Dancer or even World of Dance, which I did, which is a great opportunity, it's becoming very like wow factor orientated.
Yes.
And I think dance is such a art form as well, and not just an athleticism thing. And I think we're slowly getting away from the artistic part of it, and we're like moving more and more towards what can our bodies do, which is an amazing thing. But I don't like that kind of stuff makes you go wow. And when I'm watching things like World of Dance now, I'm going wow, 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 but I'm not sitting there crying or having goosebumps or any of those things anymore, right? Same with this last season of The Greatest Dancer, which got canceled now.
Oh, has it got? See, I like The Greatest Dancer. I thought the concept of the show was good.
Yeah, it's different, right?
Yeah.
It was cool. But I'm just watching and I'd love to see so many young kids dancing and doing like, especially contemporary. And because when I did it on the show 7 years ago, no one had seen that version of it. It was very balletic, and to watch all these now young people doing like this style that I've made popular is also so humbling. But I feel like it's getting lost amongst the flips and the tricks and the kicks and the spins and it's just like that should enhance it and not take away from what we're dancing about. Like I said, I love about contemporary is the story part of it, and I just don't know if everyone knows why they're dancing sometimes.
There was
wow.
There was on the last Got to Dance, I can't remember his name, but he was the one that dressed as a clown to start with. On the first
Harry.
Yeah, Harry, or I think it was Harry. That's it's a sign of how bad we are at remembering people.
No, I know who you're talking about though, Harry, I think.
I thought his clown one was very good, but then I thought when he did the contemporary side of it, and he just stripped away the mask and the gimmicks, he was even better.
Yes.
And I'm not going to belittle the two young children that were on there, because I love the fact that they did it. But every time they came on, I was like, stop smiling like that.
It bugged you.
Yeah, it was like, it just reminded me of that really bad where they all wear the sparkly leotard costumes, and it's the ha 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 dancing, and it's
freestyle dance.
Yeah, is it freestyle? It just doesn't
crazy, right?
Didn't do anything for me at all. That, so yeah, it's a shame that's got cancelled. I did enjoy that show.
Yeah, and it creates a platform for dance, which is always a benefit in my eyes. Like, and we need a dance show. Like, after Got to Dance, there was nothing for so long, and then this came around, which was great. I don't know if they got it right the first season. This season was a lot better.
It was, yes.
My ex-boyfriend actually did the first season, Ricky Jinks, and it was so cool to see like something of that caliber on the show, and I'm so happy he did it. But as every TV show, I know he had a really tough time on it, because everything is so formatted for TV, and it's really hard to have a voice when producers want to make a show. Yeah. And it's not a dance competition at the end of the day, it's a television show. And so, although the platform's amazing, like I had so much, and maybe because I fought for it, but I had so much say on Got to Dance, and I had so much respect from the producers, and I just felt like we were nurtured to be what we wanted to be. And this is my experience. I can't speak for anyone else, but I just miss a show like that, that was just open to not having to formulate a certain character for everybody, I guess, and put everyone in a pigeonhole and let the dance speak. Like, we didn't get any airtime on Got to Dance. Like, in regards, like, I was on TV 3 times, you know, like I had 3 times. I had 3 VTs, and like, you knew I missed my mom, and that was it. But at the end of the day, my dance spoke for why I won, you know, because you didn't get to really know me as a human as much as like you do on these shows where it's a lot about these characters, right? And I just kind of, that's what I loved about World of Dance as well when we did it in America, was like, it was the best dancers that were
How far
there.
did you get on World of Dance? Is it semi-final or quarter?
Yeah, the quarterfinal. We got a couple of rounds in, and we were just freaking like humbled to be there. We just kept looking around being like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, how the hell did we make this show? Like, it was just the most inspiring like environment of the best around the world. Like, it was mind-blowing. And so that was just humbling to be there, but it really was so cool to watch the dance be what it was. And there's always hiccups with every show, right? Like that one, it's like 3 people and only one of them's a dancer that are the judges, and it's like, how much do you actually know? But then there's other things wrong with other ones, right? And you're never gonna have anything perfect, but anytime that dance is on TV, I think it's really amazing for our industry, because it should be on the forefront. It's such a powerful art form. Like, it deserves to be the thing that's celebrated, not just behind the singers, you know?
I say, yeah, because XFactor and any type of music show, the dancers are literally, which you can understand because it's a singing show.
Totally,
and the dancers are there to complement the singer. But there is sometimes, I think, I think to the directors, these dancers have trained for a week, they've learnt all the dances, you've paid them to come in and do the dance, and all we're seeing on TV is the singer. Just widen your camera angle a little bit.
Oh my god. And that's a huge lesson I had to learn as a choreographer. Like, the first time I choreographed for X, I did a contemporary routine. It was like one of the first ones they put on X, and it was like a quartet, and Brian had me basically do what I wanted. And when I tell you, you saw maybe 20 seconds of that routine, and it was 2.5 minutes long. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's all. I worked so hard. And that's where I started. Now, when I choreograph for TV, I just don't care about my steps. Like, I know I'm there to do a job, and that's the way it has to be. I'm fitting a brief. I'm giving the director and the creative what they want, and that's my job. And when they want to change it, I change it. And I just remember they'd be, oh, I don't love that part, and it just like would hit me because it was like my steps, right? But when it's for television, when it's for a singing show, it's not about me. It's about making the whole picture look right. And that's what I've learned through creative directing as well, and learning from people like Brian and Jerry, like, about the whole picture. It's not just about the dancer. They're actually a small part of the lights and the screens and the costume and the art direction and all that stuff. Whereas when I'm doing something like Strictly and it's my baby and it's about the dancers, like then the steps matter, right? And that's when I can really like feel personal about the project.
And the dancing is, obviously with Strictly, dancing is what it is. They don't cut to the crowd.
Totally.
They don't cut to the judges. It is focused on them from start to finish. And that's why I like the way they do it. It annoys me in Britain's Got Talent. They'll have a dance act on. They'll spend half the time cutting back to the judges. I'm like, concentrate on the act. Don't concentrate on the judges. But then
all of Simon shows, right?
Yeah, like, the star of the show.
That's how they're acting.
The star of the show is Simon. What's talking of Strictly? What's Craig like? Did you meet?
Craig is nothing like his character. I
wouldn't think he would
be. Sweet. He's very kind, but he plays a great character for the TV show.
He plays the perfect villain, doesn't he? Pantomime villain, definitely.
Yes.
So what's next for you then? So after we get out of lockdown and you're back in the UK, what's next for the Lukas McFarlane career plan?
Well, nothing right now because everything's canceled. I had a lot of plans. It's so funny, and I think as disheartening as that was when it happened, like the thing that kept me going was knowing that it was happening to everyone, and no one was like flourishing in this environment. It was like everyone in my industry is like put on hold, you know, and so that kind of like we're all alone together thing got me through that. But I mean, we have this tour plan. Like I know, like I said, next year with Message, they have a very, very big international plan with the show. And I don't want to be on tour for all of it, but I'm hoping to dip in and out of it and do some fun places, which would be really great. And then TV Land, I think will be the first thing that picks up, which is nice because that's kind of my domain. So I know they're already looking at trying to do these TV shows in different ways, like without audience and without all that stuff, you know, so to keep them going, even though we have to keep the social distancing up. So there's like a Netflix thing that I was working on that's coming up, which is great. And hopefully, like I said, that whole realm of film and television will kind of happen faster because, like you said, the live studio thing and theaters and stuff like that is probably going to be the last thing that comes back. So hopefully more work in my like creative choreographic realm. I don't think I'll be back anywhere performing until maybe 2021.
Hopefully.
You like to hope. Right?
What's the Netflix? Can you
I can't tell you, or else I would. I can't tell you, but it's Netflix is always cooking up new dance things, and there's actually a lot of new dance things that have been filming this past, like before this all happened, that were just going into production, like 2 or 3 new shows. So that's cool for dance, which is amazing. And I think they're realizing they can have this like reality style platform without the public vote part of it.
Yeah. And
they're doing a lot more kind of reality shows like that, which is cool because the Netflix budget is the one. I did a Christmas movie for Netflix last year called Jingle Jangle, which comes out at Christmas this year. And it's all written by John Legend, the music, and it's so good. But just like the budget of what they can do with this stuff now, and the set designs and like our costumes. I have like a full-on wig and a top hat that's like very Dickensian, and it was really fun. But I love working in that realm as well. So what I'm doing actually to like keep the time going is I'm trying to do more acting. So I'm like learning monologues and like creating videos for myself because I love the acting part. My favorite part of this show that we just did, Message, was getting to tell this character's story all the way through it and stick with this like kind of storyline and this through line of all these emotions and the journey that he was going on, because these like 1-2 minute pieces are very aesthetically pleasing, but fulfilling wise for me as an artist, like the acting part of being a part of this character story was my favorite part. And so I'm kind of like maybe slowly peeling the curtain back on that side and being like, acting, that might be an interesting path that I have no idea how to start, but a few of my friends have done things, and so I'm just like starting by learning monologues and filming myself. And I'm going to put out a video next week that like I start with this monologue and then it goes into a dance solo, and just like little things like that.
Well, some of your YouTube videos are really big productions, aren't they? They're not single. Well, they're not single camera on your phone productions. A lot of them. Some of them are massive, full-on production with cast and crew.
I can't do anything small. I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it. And I kind of think sometimes I do the jobs that I don't necessarily love doing, so that I can do those things that no one will pay me to do, that I know I want to do and make, and I know the quality of what they can be, and that is so fun and fulfilling for me and empties my pockets. But at the end of the day, I'm like, it's cool because I have this thing as well then that I can go, this is what I want to do, like something like this, and I can say I did this, I did all of it, like art direction, production, direction, choreography, creative, lighting, like this is me and this is what I'm capable of. Now, do you want to give me the money to make something like this? Because this is what we can do together, kind of thing. So it is a way of showing my work as well, right? It's like getting myself out there in my quality of work that I want to do.
I can't imagine what they're like to edit, because it's bad enough when I'm editing a single camera unboxing review of a piece of technology. It takes like 4 hours, and I'm thinking you've got multiple cameras, multiple people, and soundtracks and everything to get together.
I have a good team. They help me out, that's for sure.
So Lucas, how can we find out about you? And I know you're on social media and you're on YouTube and you've got your own website. So do you want to give us the details for those?
Yeah, you can follow me, Lucas_McFarlane on Instagram, and Lukas McFarlane on Facebook. And then my YouTube is just Lukas McFarlane as well. It's just always my name. And my website is www.lucasmcfarlane.co.uk. And my company's website is www.untitleddance.com, and you can actually rent like my productions that I've made with my company on there, and you can find out a bunch of info on how to kind of keep in touch with me and what I'm up to. So yeah, that's me. Thank you, Ian. I appreciate this.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure, real interesting conversation, and thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Thank you very much, Lucas.
Thanks.
That was Lukas McFarlane on the As Yet Unnamed podcast. This is I'll do that bit after. That's fine.
Okay.
Yes, I'll record that after. It's been a long day today. And there we are, another episode of the As Yet Unnamed podcast done. I hope you enjoyed it. I really did enjoy talking to Lukas McFarlane. A really interesting conversation. So thank you very much to Lucas for agreeing to be on the podcast and talking to me from his family home in Canada. If you want to find out more about Lucas, then you can do. His website is lucasmcfarlane.co.uk, and he is on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, all the usual social media sites. Just search for Lukas McFarlane and you will find him on there. If you've never seen any of his dancing, then I really recommend you do. He is one of the best dancers I know, and really happy he agreed to be on the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have enjoyed the podcast, then why not consider clicking on subscribe? If you're listening to us on a podcast app, just click on follow and subscribe, and if you can give us a review as well. It really does help. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. Click on the subscribe button, the like and the comment, and why not give us a share? And if you're a Lucas fan and enjoyed that, then share with everybody you know, because the more people that listen and watch, the more people I will be able to get on for interesting conversations. So until the next episode of the As Yet Unnamed podcast, thank you very much for listening. I have been Ian Barstow, and until next week, look after yourselves and bye for now.